Debt, huh? It's like the big scary thing, right? Like everyone's got it, but nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah. It's like this big secret,
A dirty little secret.
Yeah.
It's funny, though, because you always hear that saying, everyone's got skeletons in their closet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, for a lot of us, those skeletons are like credit card bills and those loan statements we try to hide. But, and here's the good news, you've already taken this massive step towards actually getting on top of it by getting into debt review. So, in this deep dive, we're going to talk about something that we get asked a lot.
Oh,
it's like,
okay.
Okay, I'm in debt review. Now, who do I actually tell about this?
It's a good question. It's like it's natural, right, to want to keep it private, you know, but keeping it all in, that can actually make it way harder to deal with.
Yeah, like keeping it secret just makes the stress worse.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine you're carrying around this like backpack full of rocks.
Oh, that's a good one.
You wouldn't want to do that alone, right?
No, definitely not.
And that's why like talking to the right people can be, such a relief. It's about getting that support.
Okay, so let's get into who those right people are. Debtfree Magazine had this really good article about it, and they start off with someone who, you pretty much have to tell. And that's your partner.
Yeah, totally. Especially here in South Africa,
right,
where we've got a lot of couples who are married in community of property. And in those cases, being upfront about debt, it's really, really important.
Okay, can you explain what that means, community of property, for people who maybe haven't heard that term before?
Sure. So basically, it means any debts that, like, one spouse gets into, those actually become both of their responsibility. Doesn't matter who spent the money.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So hiding a credit card debt or like a personal loan, it's not just about keeping something secret. It can actually have like serious legal consequences for both people in the couple.
Right. So it's not even just about like trying to avoid an argument. It can really have huge financial implications.
Exactly. And actually, Debtfree Magazine, they had this story about a couple who almost got divorced because one of them had the secret debt.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the husband, he'd racked up all this credit card debt, kept it totally quiet. And then, of course, the truth came out, and the wife felt totally betrayed. I
can imagine.
Yeah. They had to go to, like, serious couples counseling. And it took them forever to rebuild the trust in their relationship. It's a good reminder of how damaging it can be to keep those secrets.
That sounds really rough. And I'd imagine that's a pretty common situation, sadly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it does happen a lot. But the good news is there's like a positive side to all of this. Because when couples actually face their debt problems together, it can actually make their relationship stronger.
Okay.
Yeah, they learn to communicate better about money, they come up with a budget together, and they support each other while they're going through debt review.
So it's like, instead of the debt tearing them apart, it becomes this challenge that they tackle as a team.
Exactly. It's like they share that responsibility, and that can bring them closer than ever.
Okay, that's good to hear. So we've got partners, definitely got to tell them. What about kids? How do we talk to our kids about all this?
That's a tough one. But kids, they pick up on stuff way more than we think.
Oh, definitely.
They feel that stress. And if you try to keep your money problems a secret from them, it can actually make them feel worse.
Right. They might think it's their fault or something.
Exactly. So it's more about being honest with them in a way they can understand and using it as a chance to teach them about money.
Right. Like teaching them about being responsible.
Yeah. For example, explaining why maybe you can't eat out as much or buy new clothes all the time. That's a good lesson in budgeting.
Yeah, learning to prioritize what's really important.
Exactly. And the article, it even mentions how you can use this to explain why maybe you can't buy them that toy they've been wanting.
Oh, that's such a relatable one for parents. Like, we can't get that right now.
Yeah. Right. It's not about like dumping your adult problems on them, but helping them understand. You can say something like, remember how we're saving up for that vacation? Well, we need to take care of some other important things first, so it might take a bit longer.
So it's about helping them understand that big picture.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to make choices.
Exactly. And the article even says that, when kids understand why you're doing things, they're actually more likely to go along with it.
Oh, yeah. They can become like little helpers in your whole debt-busting plan.
That's great. Maybe they'll even think twice before asking for that extra toy.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about partners, kids. What about that wider circle, like family, close friends? Should we tell them about being in debt review?
Yeah, that's where it gets kind of tricky, I think.
Yeah.
Because partners and kids, that feels kind of obvious. But family and friends, that's a whole other thing. Yeah. Definitely. And there's no like one right answer for everyone.
Yeah.
It really depends on your relationships and how comfortable you feel. But generally, I think having those people around you, close friends and family who get what you're going through, that can be a huge help.
Yeah, the article talks about having a good support system,
Mm.
people who can listen, you know, give you a hug when you need it, or even help out
Yeah.
practically.
Exactly. Think about those times when you're feeling super stressed about it all or maybe a bit down. Having someone who understands to talk to, that can make all the difference.
And it's not even just about that emotional support, right?
No, not just that.
The article also says that friends and family can keep you accountable too.
Totally. They can help you stick to your debt repayment plan, celebrate those little wins with you, and even, give you a little nudge if you start slipping up.
Like your own personal cheer squad for getting out of debt.
Exactly. And sometimes, even just explaining your situation to your loved ones, that can make those social gatherings way less stressful.
Oh my gosh, yes. I remember when I was struggling with debt, I used to dread those family holidays
Yeah.
because I felt like I couldn't afford to buy gifts or do all the fun stuff, and I was always worried about what people were thinking.
Yeah, that's so common. But when your loved ones know what's going on, when they understand why you might be suggesting a potluck instead of going to that fancy restaurant, it just takes the pressure off.
Totally. And it can even lead to those honest conversations about money, which, let's face it, we South Africans could probably do with more of.
I agree. We need to be more open about these things.
Okay, so talking to family and close friends, that can be really helpful. But what about the people we probably shouldn't tell? The article specifically mentions work, like that's maybe not the best place to bring this up.
Yeah, good point. And there's a reason for that. Your finances, that's personal stuff. Your boss, your colleagues, they don't need to know all the details about your debt review. It's about those boundaries, keeping things professional and protecting yourself.
Right. And let's be honest, trying to explain how debt review works, it can get pretty complicated. That's not really a water cooler conversation.
Exactly. Save those chats for your trusted people.
Yeah. Although the article did mention one exception, like if you're in a job that involves finances, they might do credit checks, and then your debt review would show up.
That's true. But for most jobs, it's just not something they need to know. And remember, even if your employer does find out about your debt review, there are laws to protect you from being treated unfairly.
Right. That's good to know. So it's all about finding that balance, being open with the people who can really support you, but also setting those boundaries to protect yourself, both at work and personally.
Exactly. And that actually leads to a really important point, which is how to actually have these conversations. Because knowing who to tell, that's just a first step.
Yeah, it's like knowing who to tell is one thing, but then actually having those conversations, that can be tough.
It can be. And there's something in the article that I thought was really interesting about how one day, when you're out of debt review, when you've got things sorted out, you might actually want to tell everyone. It's almost like you're proud of yourself, right, for getting through it all, and you kind of want to share that with the world.
I get that. It's like you want to shout it from the rooftops, Like, hey, look at me, I did it. I beat my debt.
Exactly. And there's something really powerful about sharing your story, both for yourself and for other people who might be going through the same thing.
Yeah, it's like that saying, you're not alone. When you hear other people's stories about how they overcame their challenges, it gives you hope.
Yeah.
It reminds you that you can do it too.
Totally. But there's also a balance to find here. Because, yes, it's great to celebrate your wins, but you also got to be sensitive.
What do you mean?
Well, not everyone's in the same place financially. What feels like a celebration to you might actually make someone else feel bad about their own situation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. We don't want to make anyone feel worse, even if we're trying to be positive.
Exactly. So while it's awesome to share your success, it's about picking the right time, the right people to tell, and making sure your message is, encouraging and understanding.
Right. So maybe it's not about literally telling everyone, but just being mindful of how different people might feel about it.
Exactly. It's about using your experience to help others, not to make them feel judged. And this kind of brings us back to something we talked about earlier, about how just by sharing your story, even with a few people, you might actually be helping to get rid of that stigma around debt.
That's a really interesting thought.
It is, isn't it? Because for so long, people have kept debt a secret. It's been this shameful thing.
Right, like you're not supposed to talk about it.
But when we do talk about it, when we make it a normal conversation, it helps break down those walls, and then it's easier for other people to do the same.
Yeah, it's like we're changing the whole story around debt. It's not something to be ashamed of anymore. It's something you can overcome with the right help.
Exactly. And when that happens, it creates this ripple effect. More people feel comfortable asking for help, sharing what they're going through, and supporting each other.
And then it's not this big taboo topic anymore. It's just something that people experience and we can help each other through it.
Yeah, it's about connecting with people, not judging them. And that's a really powerful change.
Wow, this deep dive has been really insightful.
It has.
We've covered so much, from the practical stuff like who to tell to those more emotional aspects, and even how this could change how we think about debt as a society.
It really shows how important it is to talk about these things, especially with people you trust.
Right, you don't have to go through this alone.
Exactly. And if you decide to go into debt review, remember, there are people who can help you through that process too.
So to wrap things up, if you're listening to this, remember, you're not alone. You've taken a huge step by facing your debt. And there's no shame in asking for help or celebrating your progress.
And remember, by opening up and talking about it, you might just inspire someone else to do the same.
That's a great thought to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into who to tell about your debt review journey. You
You got this.
love us.